Darkness came first, not the kind you meet when you close your eyes, but a darkness without direction, without edge, without even the promise of morning, a darkness that wasn't the absence of light, because light had never existed. This was the raw canvas of existence itself, a silent ocean of nothing, trembling with the potential to become something, and then a whisper, a ripple in nothingness that refused to stay still. In less than a heartbeat, that whisper inflated into everything: space, time, energy, matter. The universe was born in a flash too bright to ever be seen again, and then, just as suddenly, the light was swallowed by its own expansion. The newborn cosmos exhaled into blackness. For hundreds of thousands of years, the universe was a fog of invisible particles, a plasma so dense that light could not escape. Photons collided endlessly, trapped in a cosmic soup where there were no stars, no galaxies, no eyes to watch. It was an infant world wrapped in darkness, humming softly in microwave whispers that we still hear today as the cosmic background. If you could have stood there, though there was nowhere to stand, you would have seen nothing, only a sea of possibility, hydrogen and helium drifting in endless night. A universe still learning how to cool, how to organize, how to remember its own explosion. And in that endless dark, the first patterns began to breathe. Tiny imperfections, wrinkles in the early fabric of space-time, became the seeds of everything, places where gravity tugged just a little harder. A billionth of a gram more density here, a billionth less there. They were microscopic shadows, but shadows powerful enough to script the future of galaxies. It's strange to think. Everything that would one day shine, every sun, every civilization, every heartbeat, was already encoded in those silent ripples of darkness. The first light was being sculpted by the absence of it. The universe at this point was only 38,000 years old, still a child compared to its 13.8 billion year story. And yet it had already chosen its language: gravity. Gravity, the invisible writer of all form, began gathering matter into faint halos. It worked patiently, silently in the dark. Darkness was not a mistake. It was the architect's first decision. Imagine this early cosmos as an orchestra before the music starts, every particle and instrument waiting for its cue. Dark matter, mysterious and unseen, was already tuning the strings. Its gravitational pull, though invisible, drew regular matter into its embrace, sketching the outlines of the great cosmic web. But there were still no stars to illuminate the score. The universe remained blind to its own beauty. We often imagine creation as a flash of brilliance, a divine spark, but in truth, creation is more often a long silence. The universe's most powerful transformations happen quietly, hidden from sight. Light may reveal, but darkness constructs. As the plasma cooled, atoms finally formed, stable, neutral, ready to interact. Hydrogen became the soft clay of reality, and the first clouds began to gather in the void, pulled together by invisible hands. Inside those clouds, pressure built for millions of years until, at last, the first stars ignited. When that happened, light burst back into the universe for the first time since the beginning. But it was not pure. It was scattered, uneven, trembling through the fog of interstellar gas. The early stars lived fast and died young, scattering their ashes into space, and with them the elements that would one day make planets, oceans, and thought. But that comes later. For now, we linger in the darkness before that ignition, in the era when existence was still dreaming of light. To call it darkness may even be misleading. It was more like an incubation. Light needs contrast to mean anything. Brightness only matters because of what surrounds it. If the universe had been all brilliance with no shadow to define it, there would have been no structure, no story, no time. It would have been static, an eternal, featureless glare. Darkness, then, is not the villain of the cosmic story. It is the womb, the quiet from which rhythm is born, the stillness that allows motion to have direction. Every sunrise you've ever seen was first imagined by this ancient night. When cosmologists speak of the dark ages of the universe, they don't mean despair, they mean potential. It was during this invisible age that the scaffolding of the cosmos was built, the vast framework of dark matter that would cradle every galaxy to come. We owe every visible wonder to what could not be seen. Look at a night sky now and you see only a fraction of what's there. Between every constellation lies a sea of invisible mass, an unseen hand holding the stars in place. And yet this hand is as real as gravity itself, because it is gravity itself wearing the mask of mystery. Perhaps that's the lesson the early universe offers us. What you cannot see may be more essential than what you can. There's poetry in the fact that we discovered the universe's dark foundation, not by seeing it, but by noticing what was missing. Galaxies were spinning too fast. The math didn't add up. Something invisible was holding them together, something outweighing all visible matter 5-1. It was like finding fingerprints on glass, but never the hand that made them. That realization, that the majority of the cosmos is unseen, changed everything. We began to understand that light is not the main story, only the surface. Darkness is the structure, the gravity, the silent majority of existence. And if that's true on a cosmic scale, maybe it's also true within us. Because we too are built from unseen forces, emotions unspoken, memories buried, instincts older than thought. Our consciousness glows only because something deeper and darker is holding it together. We call it the subconscious, but maybe it's our own version of dark matter, invisible but indispensable. Before the first light, there was no separation between creation and destruction. The universe was a single, humming possibility, undecided about what it wanted to be. Entropy and order danced together, writing and erasing themselves in the same stroke. It wasn't chaos, it was gestation. Even now, 13 billion years later, that first darkness has never left. Every photon that races through space is still being guided by its gravity. Every galaxy spins within its invisible halo. Every piece of matter is still bound by something it cannot see. The darkness before light wasn't erased by the dawn. It became the dawn's foundation. If you were to zoom out, beyond all stars, beyond all galaxies, you would see the cosmic web glowing faintly with microwave echoes. You would see filaments of dark matter stretching like veins through the infinite, and in between them, vast empty spaces, the cosmic voids, darker than imagination. This is the architecture of reality, light trapped in the embrace of shadow. It's humbling, almost spiritual, to realize that the universe was designed not by intention, but by balance. For every explosion of light, there had to be an equal silence to contain it. For every act of creation, an unseen gravity to hold it in place. Darkness doesn't destroy, it defines. In that sense, the early universe wasn't waiting for light. It was becoming the condition that made light possible. Every silence was a prelude, every void a cathedral being carved for stars that didn't yet exist. And maybe that's what darkness has always meant. Not death, not absence, but readiness. A cosmic inhale before the first breath of radiance. Think of how your eyes adjust in a dark room. At first, you see nothing. Then slowly patterns emerge, faint outlines, gentle gradients. You start to perceive what was always there, hidden only because you weren't ready to receive it. The early universe went through the same awakening. Darkness was its teacher, guiding it toward vision. Scientists estimate that the first stars lit up about 100 million years after the Big Bang. An unimaginable patience. Those stars burned hydrogen into helium, helium into carbon, carbon into everything else. When they died, their explosions scattered the ingredients for life. But it all began in a place that looked like nothing. Creation, it seems, needs silence before sound. Emptiness before form, darkness before light. If the universe is a story, then its first chapter is not a shout but a whisper, a darkness so deep that it had to invent brightness just to know it existed. We humans, in our own way, repeat that pattern. Every idea begins in the dark. In the quiet space before language, every transformation starts in uncertainty. We are, each of us, small versions of that same cosmic process, born from shadow, reaching for illumination. So when we look up at the night sky, we are not looking into emptiness. We are looking into origin, into the fertile dark that once imagined light. The first light of the cosmos did not conquer darkness. It collaborated with it. It filled the spaces that darkness had prepared, and together they built the contrast that makes the universe beautiful. Perhaps that's the truth hidden in plain sight. The universe isn't a battle between light and dark. It's a partnership. One creates, the other holds. One reveals, the other protects. Without both, nothing would endure. Billions of years later, that same balance still rules every corner of existence. Galaxies glide within invisible halos. Before there were galaxies, before there were even atoms, the universe had a secret. It was never truly empty. In the first sliver of a second after the Big Bang, space itself expanded faster than light could chase it. This was the era of cosmic inflation, a period so brief, yet so violent that the universe grew from subatomic size to something vast enough to contain everything that would ever exist. And within that chaos, tiny quantum ripples, fluctuations in the energy field of nothingness, were stretched to cosmic scales. They were microscopic imperfections, the smallest possible unevenness in the distribution of energy. But they would become everything, because these wrinkles, these invisible fingerprints left on the newborn universe, became the gravitational seeds of all future structure. Every galaxy, every cluster, every atom that would one day form you began as a whisper of quantum noise frozen into the expanding fabric of space. Inflation didn't just blow the universe up like a balloon, it sculpted its invisible skeleton. And when the expansion slowed, the universe began to cool. Out of that cooling came the first hints of form: matter, antimatter, radiation. But not all matter was equal. Most of it, the kind that glows, burns, and collides, made up less than a fraction of what was really there. The rest, dark matter, neither emitted nor absorbed light. It didn't shine, it didn't reflect, and it couldn't be seen. Yet it was heavier, far heavier, than everything visible combined. Dark matter became the unseen majority, the silent scaffolding upon which the entire cosmic story would be built. To understand dark matter is to confront humility itself. We, the self-proclaimed observers of the universe, have only ever witnessed a small fraction of what exists. Everything our eyes can see, from the glow of stars to the shimmer of nebulae, makes up less than 5% of the universe. The rest hides in plain sight. But hides might not be the right word. Dark matter doesn't choose to be unseen. It simply doesn't interact with light. It moves through electromagnetic radiation as if it doesn't exist, whispering only through gravity. It is there in the same way a shadow is there, real but untouchable. Imagine the early cosmos again. Vast, cooling, silent, clouds of gas drifting in the dark, pulled by forces they couldn't see. In that invisible tug, the gravity of dark matter, everything began to take shape. Dark matter gathered in invisible halos, clumping into dense regions that became wells of gravity. Regular matter, the kind that could glow, fell into those wells, drawn like dust spiraling toward an unseen hand. Without dark matter, light itself would have had nowhere to settle. There would be no galaxies, no stars, no structure, only a thin fog of particles drifting forever apart. So it's no exaggeration to say the universe as we know it was built by the invisible. When cosmologists simulate the birth of the universe on supercomputers, they begin with one assumption, that dark matter is real. And when they let gravity do its work, something miraculous happens. The resulting universe looks exactly like ours. Galaxies form along invisible filaments, clusters gather in knots, and vast voids stretch between them like empty lungs breathing in infinity. It's as if the universe was spun from spider silk so fine that only its gravitational shadow remains, a web woven of darkness, shaping the placement of every star that would ever shine. This is the cosmic web, a structure larger than imagination and yet entirely unseen. Scientists can't yet say what dark matter is. Some suspect it's made of exotic particles, WIMPs, axions, sterile neutrinos, ghosts of physics still hiding in the equations. Others wonder if our understanding of gravity itself is incomplete, that maybe the laws bend differently on cosmic scales. But no matter what the answer turns out to be, one truth remains: whatever holds the universe together cannot be seen. And that is both a scientific and a spiritual revelation, because it tells us something profound, that reality is not limited to what glows. That truth, power and structure often live in silence, invisibility and patience. Just as your heartbeat is guided by unseen chemistry, so the cosmos breathes through forces that will never shimmer in telescopes. It's easy to romanticize light, to think of it as the hero of the cosmic story. But perhaps light is more like language, and darkness is the grammar that gives it meaning. The visible universe is a message written across an invisible page. Without that page, the words would dissolve into chaos. Even now, when we look deep into space with our most powerful instruments, we are only reading the punctuation marks of a story mostly written in invisible ink. Every galaxy we observe is just a bright knot in a much larger unseen network. Dark matter doesn't just exist out there, it exists through everything. It binds clusters together across billions of light years, forming an invisible structure that defines the universe's very shape. We live inside that invisible architecture like fish unaware of the ocean. What's even stranger is that we have proof of its presence, not from seeing it, but from its influence on what we can see. When light from distant galaxies travels toward us, it bends, curved by the gravity of unseen mass. This effect, called gravitational lensing, lets us map the invisible indirectly. The distortions in starlight trace the fingerprints of dark matter, revealing the contours of a universe made mostly of shadow. In other words, light itself becomes a detective, bending around the dark to expose what cannot otherwise be known. It's as if the cosmos built its own form of revelation, a way for the seen and unseen to collaborate. And maybe that's the universe's most poetic quality. It hides itself, but never completely. It allows enough distortion for curiosity to survive. In human terms, dark matter is the embodiment of the unknowable, the something that holds meaning together without ever needing to be seen. Just as love, memory, or consciousness have no form yet shape everything we do, the cosmos relies on invisible architecture to exist. We owe our lives to a mystery that refuses to reveal itself. And perhaps that's not a coincidence. Maybe the same principle applies at every scale of existence. Maybe the universe is structured so that what matters most can't be directly observed, because if it could, the mystery would end, and with it, the drive to explore. When the first galaxies formed, they didn't appear randomly across the void. They clustered where dark matter had already built invisible foundations. The halos of dark matter acted like gravitational wells, catching and cradling the luminous material that would ignite into stars. These halos grew denser, merging into clusters, feeding each other like black rivers of shadow. Every star, every sunbeam, every spark of beauty is perched atop a foundation of darkness billions of years old. And that realization changes everything, because it means that the darkness we often fear isn't chaos, it's structure. The invisible doesn't oppose the visible, it sustains it. Darkness is not an absence, it's a presence, quieter, deeper, and more faithful than light itself. There's a strange comfort in knowing that the universe began invisible and remains mostly that way. It suggests that reality is not designed for observation alone. It exists for its own reasons, with or without witnesses. And yet, here we are, a species of brief awareness daring to map the dark. We send telescopes into the night, chasing faint photons across the abyss, trying to draw a map of what cannot be seen. And in the process, we learn that seeing is not the only form of knowing. The mind, too, must evolve its own kind of gravitational lens, one that bends around uncertainty, tracing shapes in the unseen. Think of this. When you stare into a night sky full of stars, the light you see is rare. A thin embroidery on an endless dark fabric. But that fabric is not empty, It is alive with invisible motion, filled with particles that rarely touch, yet together define the shape of everything. The darkness between stars is not distance, it's the framework of creation. We often say, light reveals, but in truth, it's darkness that holds revelation in place. Without contrast, there is no perception. Without shadow, no definition. Without the unseen, the seen cannot endure. And perhaps, at a deeper level, the same pattern unfolds within us. The human mind, like the universe, is mostly dark, unconscious, unseen, vast. Only a small portion of thought rises into awareness, into the glow of language and reflection. But beneath that light, unseen patterns of memory, instinct and emotion shape who we are. We are galaxies of consciousness bound by our own invisible gravity. Maybe that's why the universe feels familiar. Not because we understand it, but because we resemble it. Our light flickers in patterns held together by something unseeable, something deep and ancient that whispers, "You exist because the invisible allows you to." In the end, the story of dark matter is not just about physics, it's about perspective. It's about learning to find meaning in the unseen, because if 95% of the universe hides beyond our senses, then maybe wonder itself is the proper response to reality, not certainty, not dominance, but awe. And that awe is precisely what connects us to the cosmos. It reminds us that invisibility is not failure, that mystery is not the opposite of truth. It is truth, still unfolding. The universe began invisible, and in many ways it remains so. But perhaps the point was never to reveal everything. Perhaps the point was to teach us to look deeper, to listen for what gravity whispers when light falls silent, because somewhere out there, beyond every star you can see, lies a presence vast and tender, the unseen hand that holds the galaxies together. It doesn't glow, it doesn't speak, it doesn't demand to be known, and yet, without it, nothing, not even light, could exist. The birth of the invisible was not a flaw in creation, it was its foundation. The first act of the cosmos was not illumination, but the making of the unseen, the quiet decision that the greatest powers should work in silence. There is a moment in the universe's story when chaos begins to remember its shape, not in light, but in gravity, not in the glowing stars, but in the dark threads that cradle them. If you could somehow stand outside time and watch the newborn cosmos unfold from a distance, you wouldn't see galaxies yet. You wouldn't even see light. What you'd see, if you could see the invisible, is a vast ghostly lattice forming beneath the surface of everything, a scaffolding of darkness, a skeleton of the unseen. This is the cosmic web, the great hidden architecture of the universe. It stretches across hundreds of millions of light years, woven from something that doesn't reflect, absorb or emit light, a material that reveals itself only by its gravity. We call it dark matter. But that phrase, and a dark matter, is almost a confession of ignorance. It's less a name, more a placeholder for our blindness, because we don't know what it is. We only know what it does. And what it does is everything. The hidden sculptor billions of years ago, when the universe was still a murky plasma, hot, dense, and almost uniform, tiny imperfections were already there. Microscopic ripples in density. They came from quantum fluctuations during cosmic inflation, random jitters of energy magnified to cosmic scale. Those ripples were like faint fingerprints pressed into the early universe, patterns that would one day decide where galaxies would bloom and where the voids would remain barren forever. But here's the twist. Normal matter, the stuff that makes stars, planets, you and everything you can see, was too easily moved by light. It couldn't hold its shape. The radiation of the young universe was too intense. It scattered atoms like dust in a storm. So the visible couldn't build structure. It needed an invisible foundation, something immune to light, something heavy, steady, unshaken by radiation. Dark matter became that foundation. The first architect of structure, the silent sculptor of everything that would ever glow, the first threads. As the universe expanded and cooled, dark matter began to cluster under its own gravity. It didn't collide or radiate like ordinary matter. It simply drifted and pulled, forming dense knots and elongated filaments. Imagine a cosmic mist condensing into strands, each one stretching across millions of light years. Where these strands intersected, gravity deepened, forming nodes. And at those nodes, something miraculous began to happen. Ordinary matter started to fall in. The gas cooled, pooled, and eventually ignited. Stars were born, galaxies took shape, but they didn't form randomly. They followed the blueprint drawn by dark matter. If you could drain the light from the universe and look only at its gravitational outline, you'd see this invisible web spanning all of space. It's vast beyond comprehension, the largest pattern ever created, and yet it's not chaotic. It's eerily delicate, balanced between emptiness and structure, like frost forming on an infinite window. Light follows shadow. This is one of the strangest truths in cosmology. Light follows shadow. Stars trace the filaments of darkness. The Milky Way, the Andromeda Galaxy, and every shimmering spiral in the night sky, they all sit on the strands of this dark web. They are ornaments strung along invisible threads, and between those threads lie immense voids, each hundreds of millions of light years wide, vast bubbles of almost nothing. It's a haunting balance. Every bright cluster of galaxies is paired with a silent ocean of emptiness. The universe is not evenly filled. It's sculpted, patterned, rhythmic, light and dark in perfect tension. If you zoomed out far enough, far beyond any telescope's reach, you'd see the whole thing looks like a living organism. The filaments resemble the neural pathways of a cosmic brain. Clusters of galaxies pulse like synapses connected by dark bridges. It's as if the universe itself grew a nervous system, a network of gravity through which galaxies circulate like thoughts. Maybe that's not coincidence. Maybe that's what structure always does when given enough time. It networks, it connects, it becomes aware of itself through pattern. A symphony of gravity. The cosmic web is not still. It's alive in the slowest possible way. Over billions of years, galaxies drift along the filaments like leaves floating down invisible rivers. Clusters collide, merge, and form even greater structures, superclusters, walls and chains that stretch across cosmic horizons. All the while, dark matter hums beneath it all, orchestrating the dance. It's the gravity that holds the notes together, the rhythm that keeps time in a cosmic symphony too vast for any ear to hear. What we call the universe, all its brilliance, colour and life, is just the visible melody, but underneath darkness keeps the beat. Without that rhythm, light would scatter into nothing, stars would drift apart before they could burn, planets would never hold orbits, life would never find stability. We exist because darkness knows how to hold, the cartographers of the invisible. It took humanity billions of years to glimpse this hidden structure. For most of our history, we saw only the stars, points of light against blackness. We thought the blackness was empty, but as our telescopes grew more powerful, we began to notice patterns. Galaxies weren't scattered randomly. They gathered in clusters connected by faint bridges and separated by enormous voids. Then, in the late 20th century, computers helped us simulate the universe's evolution from its earliest conditions. When scientists fed in the laws of physics and added dark matter, a pattern emerged on the screen, a vast. It looked uncannily like what telescopes were beginning to see. The simulation and the observation matched perfectly. That was when we realized the universe is woven, and what we see, the galaxies, stars, and light, are just beads on invisible threads. To map the web is to map the invisible backbone of existence itself. The fragile balance. The cosmic web is not permanent, it evolves. Gravity pulls matter together, while dark energy pushes it apart. The web stretches, thins, and reshapes over billions of years. In time, the expansion of the universe may tear the filaments so far apart that galaxies can no longer reach each other. The cosmic web could unravel, leaving each island of light isolated in its own darkness. Someday, perhaps far in the future, the night sky will go dark again. not because light has died, but because distance has won. The web that bound everything together will fade into silence, and yet, even in that silence, the pattern will remain invisible. A ghost imprint of connection across a universe gone cold. The human reflection. When we look at the cosmic web, it's hard not to feel a strange sense of recognition, because it looks like us, or rather, like the structure inside us. The neurons in your brain, the synaptic networks that give rise to thought, they mirror the same fractal geometry that the universe follows at cosmic scales. The same pattern repeats: nodes, filaments, voids, matter connecting through invisible fields. It's as if nature keeps rediscovering the same architecture at every level. Atoms to neurons, neurons to galaxies. Maybe consciousness itself is another kind of web, an internal dark matter of thoughts, invisible but binding all experience together. We sense things, remember them, connect them, until a pattern emerges that we call self. The universe does the same, but with galaxies. Perhaps every structure is the cosmos remembering how to connect, from the smallest mind to the grandest filament. Perhaps the cosmic web isn't just matter organizing itself. Maybe it's awareness practicing on a grand scale, shadows that bind the light. The phrase dark matter almost makes it sound separate, like something alien, distant, detached from us. But that's not true. It's here, right now. It passes through you, through your body, your planet, every second, billions of particles silently flowing without collision. It's the invisible ocean we're all swimming in. We are made of light that clings to shadow. We are creatures whose atoms assembled on the strings that darkness pulled tight. Darkness doesn't just surround light, it anchors it. It gives it shape, contrast, and gravity. Without the unseen, the seen would have no meaning, no cohesion, no form. The universe, at its deepest level, is not a battle between light and dark. It's a collaboration. The light gives us something to see. The dark gives it something to stand on.